All right, guys, it's time to talk about general classical rhetoric. Now, rhetoric just refers to the study of persuasion and argument. So anytime you're listening to someone speak, reading someone's words, or looking at someone's sort of project or something like that, they have a goal, they have an argument, and you, the viewer, the reader, the listener, are going to be judging their argument. You're going to be judging whether it's persuasive or not, just like you did with essays 1 and 2, really. You're sort of taking in all this information and making judgments about how effective it is. So obviously in classical rhetoric, the three key ideas are ethos, logos, and pathos, and we sort of attribute those to Aristotle up on the top left here. He's not the only thinker that came up with this idea, though. Actually, all over the world for thousands of years, really smart people have been explaining that a good argument needs all three of these things. Some other examples are people like Confucius say, up here in the middle right, and then Thoth, the good old Egyptian thinker, and the Brahmin right there from India, who sort of discovered the same basic ideas at different times in history with no knowledge of each other. So this is why these are important, because pretty much smart people throughout history on every continent, in every country, have come to the same basic conclusions, that these three things are necessary for an argument to be effective. Ethos is an appeal to authority, meaning that the speaker or the writer has authority or credibility. Logos is an appeal to logic. The speaker follows sound reasoning. The speaker follows sound reasoning. And last but not least, we have pathos, which is emotion. The speaker is able to connect to the audience's feelings and make them feel something. Ethos is the authority of the speaker or the authority that the speaker borrows. So when you write an essay about a book, for example, The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, you're an expert on that book because you read it, and then you're borrowing the expertise of people from the podcast Juicervos because they have personal experiences or degrees or they are scientists, etc. And you're also borrowing the authority or the expertise of Elizabeth Bartmus, who's an expert on fiction with autistic characters. So really, ethos is whenever you have authority based on expertise or you're appealing to the authority of other experts, facts and figures, history, law, religion, or any other evidence. So evidence in general, whether it's something you know or something someone else knows, it's always an appeal to ethos. Here are some quick examples. I'm your boss, so you need to come into work. Okay, so there the argument is you need to come to work, and the only reason I offer is that I have authority. I'm your boss, therefore that's why you have to do something. Another one could be facts and figures. 65% of all employees who miss work get fired. So here, I'm not telling you this because I'm the boss. I'm instead giving you facts and figures. So I'm appealing to the authority of numbers and science in a sense. And last but not least, a celebrity one, right? Ice Cube once wrote, "Get your ass up and go to work." Now, this is, again, I'm appealing to the authority of Ice Cube the musician and his song, "Cash Over Ass." Now, this might be a little crass. You might be like, I don't know, I don't like it when Mr. Page talks like that. But this is an example of me appealing to the authority of an artist who made a point rather than appealing to my own authority. Because if I said, get your ass up and go to work on my own, it wouldn't have very much credibility. Logos refers to a chain of reasoning that renders a conclusion inevitable or self-evident. For example, two things that are equal to the same thing are equal to, well, the answer's got to be each other. And logical arguments show relationships between ideas and examples, between claims and evidence, and so on. Logical arguments might contain facts. This is an important point. Logical arguments might contain facts, but they don't necessarily require them. So remember that facts and logic are related, but they're not the same thing. More often, logic is used to explain why or how facts connect to claims. For example, x plus y equals z if z minus y equals x. Notice that there's no actual numbers there. I'm just using variables. So here, I'm just relying on logic that is self-evident. If x plus y equals z, then z minus y has to equal x, otherwise it doesn't make any sense, no matter what numbers they are. Here's another example of logic. I'll wear a jacket today because I want to stay warm. So once again, I'm not appealing to authority. I'm not giving any evidence or facts or figures. I'm just giving an explanation that is logically sound. Finally, people who get a lot of exercise are often upbeat because exercising releases endorphins. Notice that I'm using words like because a lot in these explanations. Because, however, although, even, if, until. These are all logical connections. Finally, pathos. Emotional appeals can make the audience empathize and sympathize with the speaker, making them more likely to accept the argument. Pathos can also make the consequence or stake of the argument clearer. In other words, why should I care? Well, let me appeal to your emotions and explain it to you. Appeals to emotion are often found in specific examples or personal narratives. A lot of you for essay number 2 had a friend or family member who had been diagnosed as autistic, and that was a very effective emotional appeal. It made me feel like, first of all, you had authority because you had the experience, but it also made me feel a connection to you, the writer, because you had had this experience and you personally were affected by your experience. That makes me feel like I can trust you. It makes me feel invested in what you have to say. Here are some examples of appeals to pathos. Helen knows how bad drunk driving can be because her 4-year-old son was killed by a drunk driver. So there, I'm really trying to make the audience feel bad for Helen, right? It doesn't make Helen an expert on drunk driving. It just means that it happened to her and she understands the consequences. So let's look at the second one. If we don't win this election, I'll blame myself. So here, once again, if I'm running for office and I don't win, me saying I'm going to blame myself is trying to make the audience feel bad, trying to make the audience feel sorry for me to get some sympathy. Last but not least, when you go home tonight, imagine what it would be like to lose your job over something you couldn't control. So this kind of ties back to our first reading, but once again, asking the audience to imagine something for themselves really is a strong appeal to pathos. So hopefully this helps just give you a basic understanding of ethos, logos, and pathos. We're not going to go much deeper into it this semester, but I definitely want to introduce you to it so that you can start using these terms in your writing and start thinking about these terms when you read something so that you can explain why you found it persuasive or not. Use this to sort of, first of all, pass the quiz about classical rhetoric, but also start using these terms in essay number 3 and start commenting on, was Gloria Anzaldúa effective when she appealed to pathos, when she appealed to logos, when she appealed to ethos? All right, have a good one, guys.